According to one Harvard professor, the recent massive interstellar visitor we call Oumuamua is in fact an alien vessel that flies by our planet to observe us regularly over thousands of years. In fact, there is more evidence for this than the good professor realizes. Sightings of UFOs and alien encounters are not actually new. In fact, they go back thousands of years, and amazingly, they resemble contemporary accounts. There are eyewitnesses from ancient times that actually recorded them, and there is even historical evidence in archaeology, landscapes, and symbols. Why do we believe ancient accounts about battles and politics, and yet ignore records about UFO sightings? This is selective history at play, a fear to appear stupid. From Egypt to Rome, from Africa to Europe, from South America to Australia, sightings have been recorded across vast periods of time. Sometimes it just needs a shift in perspective to see them for what they really are: records or alien visitation to planet Earth. Get ready to change your perspective and discover aliens in ancient times. Ancient Mesopotamia is the birthplace of modern humanity on so many levels. And it reveals to us amazing evidence of ancient aliens having descended to Earth, dealing with humans and becoming our gods. There are carvings and artworks depicting the glorious angels and even their craft. This is the home of what were called the Watchers, strange beings who were subservient to a shining angelic species that came down to Earth and guided mankind. These are depictions and tales of ancient travelers to our planet. All of this was written down by their historians and scribes for us to decipher today. Our present historians pick and choose what they wish to believe based upon our present cultural denial of life coming from elsewhere. And so they call these elements myths and mysteries. Ancient Egypt is a land of myth and mystery. So much of its history, mythology, and religion is yet to be deciphered. In the second millennium before Christ, scribes of the Pharaoh Thutmose III actually left us a record of ancient aliens. He saw what they described as fiery discs floating unnaturally in the sky above them. These records have been used by historians to fill in their gaps, and yet this particular report is condemned and even called fake. This is a pattern of cover-up we shall see again and again. Historians use the writer Livy to build their history of ancient Rome, and yet when it comes to UFO sightings, they ignore him. In the year 218 BC, Livy stated that there had been a portent of winter, which he wrote was in the shape of phantom ships that had been seen gleaming in the sky. A remarkably similar ancient account of the Egyptian one, and yet 1,200 years apart. In 76 BC, the Roman writer Pliny the Elder saw something very similar. Again, Pliny is used as a reliable source of information for our ancient Roman ancestors, and yet when he speaks of UFO sightings, he is ignored. He said that a spark appeared in the sky and then grew in size as it ascended to Earth until it was the size of the moon. The object then ascended back into the sky and was transformed into pure light. What on earth could it have been? Nothing on earth at all. There is nothing in the natural world that can explain this, so the historian's answer is to once again ignore it. 2 years later, another historically reliable source gives us even more. Plutarch recorded the tale of a battle commanded by Lucullus, but before a battle could commence, he states, all of a sudden, the sky burst asunder, and a huge flame-like body was seen to fall between the two armies. In shape, it was most like a wine jar, and in color, like molten silver. This is not just a reliable record of a UFO sighting. This is a record of alien intervention between two warring factions. Zoom forward in time to the 2nd century AD, and we find another reliable historical source writing about UFOs again. The Roman historian Cassius Dio tells us about a fine rain resembling silver descended from a clear sky upon the form of Augustus. It is stated that this fine silver rain was collected and used to coat bronze coins, but by the 4th day the silver had vanished. There is no substance known with these properties, unless this were the remains of some alien ship. In the 7th century, we find the remarkable sarcophagus lid of the Mayan king Pasul. It is now infamous in the world of ufology because it depicts an ancient astronaut. The central figure in the middle of the sarcophagus is an extraterrestrial alien riding what appears to be a rocket or some sort of spaceship control center. As Eric von Daniken stated, in the center of the frame is a man sitting, bending forward. He has a mask on his nose. He uses his 2 hands to manipulate some controls, and the heel of his left foot is on a kind of pedal with different adjustments. The rear portion is separated from him. He is sitting on a complicated chair, and outside of this whole frame you see a little flame like an exhaust. In 1492, the explorers Christopher Columbus and Pedro Gutierrez observed something very strange while on the deck of the Santa Maria. They reported a light glimmering at a great distance. It vanished and reappeared several times during the night, moving up and down in sudden and passing gleams. We move forward again now to the 16th century and to Nuremberg in the Holy Roman Empire. Reliable historical records tell us of an amazing event witnessed by the people of the town. They saw an aerial battle in the sky of an alien craft. This was followed by the appearance of massive black triangular objects and a large crash outside of the city. This is not a minor sighting. Residents saw hundreds of spheres, cylinders, and other strangely shaped craft moving erratically in the sky. This was not just one eyewitness. This is the record of the whole town of Nuremberg, and yet history ignores it. Are we so scared of the truth? Just 5 years later, in Basel, Switzerland, numerous spherical objects appeared in the skies, which seemed to the citizens to have emerged from the sun. A 16th century woodcutting depicts this scene in which dark spheres were witnessed hovering over the town. The spheres appeared at sunrise. Many became red and fiery, ending by being consumed and vanishing, wrote Samuel Cocceius in the local newspaper on this date. 100 years later, the first mention of UFOs in Slovakia is described in the Levocha town's chronicles. The alien vessel is described as appearing like a silver lizard in the sky. In the 18th century, the English had their own remarkable sighting above Windsor Castle. There is an illustration depicting a sighting that occurred at 9:45 p.m. on the evening of August 18, 1783, when 4 witnesses on the terrace of Windsor Castle observed a luminous object in the skies of the home counties of England. An oblong cloud moving more or less parallel to the horizon. Under this cloud could have seen a luminous object which soon became spherical, brilliantly lit. It is incredible that over this vast period of time, these vessels reported by eyewitnesses all appear to be silver, out of all the colors that could have been chosen. But what about the possibility of actual alien encounters we hear so much of these days? Well, in the early 19th century, fishermen in Japan left us a report of a strange drifting vessel. When they went to investigate, a beautiful woman appeared, holding a box and speaking in a strange language. Historians tell us this is mere folklore, even though it is very modern to be folklore. Ufologists believe this to be one of the earliest records of an alien encounter. Moving forward in time and across the USA, we discover a wave of sightings that have become legendary. The mystery airship encounters began in California in 1896 and rapidly spread. Soon reports of strange ships in the skies merged further east. There are many eyewitness accounts, and some of these describe being able to see occupants through the windows. There are even reports of physical encounters with the pilots themselves. They appear to be human, and yet, like the Japanese woman, their behavior is strange, along with their mannerisms and clothing. It is said some of them claim to be from the planet Mars. These ships were fast, robust, and could travel over enormous distances, unlike anything human technology had at the time. It was witnessed by hundreds of ordinary people and senators alike. And yet again, historians discount this massive amount of eyewitness data as a hoax of some kind. Who had the technology in the late 19th century to do such a thing, and why do we not have evidence of it? This is no hoax and should be taken very seriously. Why? Because it has been happening for generations across the world. Every time these accounts are hushed up or ridiculed, UFO investigator Jerome Clark stated, "One curious feature of the post-1887 airship waves was the failure of each to stick to historical memory. Although 1909, for example, brought a flood of sightings worldwide and attendant discussion and speculation, contemporary accounts do not allude to the hugely publicized events of little more than a decade earlier." Any attempt to uncover the truth about the late 19th century airship scare comes up against some unhappy realities. Newspaper coverage was unreliable. No independent investigators spoke directly with alleged witnesses or attempted to verify or debunk their testimony. And, with a single unsatisfactory exception, no eyewitness was ever interviewed, even in the 1950s, when some were presumably still living. Some kind of cover-up was afoot. Some did state that these were alien visitors, though, including the Washington Times, which speculated that the airships were a reconnoitering party from Mars, and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, which suggested of the airships that these may be visitors from Mars, fearful at the last of invading the planet they have been seeking. In 1909, a letter printed on the Otago Daily Times in New Zealand suggested that the mystery airship sightings then being reported in that country were due to Martian atomic-powered spaceships. At the same time, in Aurora, Texas, we discover an article in the Dallas Morning News describing an actual UFO hitting a windmill and crashing down to Earth. It was reported that the pilot was not of this world and as a Martian by the Army Signal Service officer at the scene. The alien did not survive and was actually buried near Fort Worth in the Aurora Cemetery. And what happened to the crashed UFO? It was dumped into a nearby well. Years later, Mr. Brawley Oates bought the property and cleaned out the debris from the well because he needed it as a source of water. He then went on to develop severe arthritis, which he claimed to have been the result of the contaminated water. He sealed the well with a concrete slab and put an outbuilding on top of it. Soon more mystery aircraft were spotted, and not just in the USA. Moving lights and solid craft were spotted in the skies above Otago and elsewhere in New Zealand in 1909. All of these were reported to the newspapers, leaving behind a reliable eyewitness trail. In 1917, at the height of the First World War, witnesses saw something amazing. In Portugal, thousands of people saw the sun suddenly gyrate and then descend. Such a sight was religiously interpreted, but reality tells us that a large, shining, moving object in the sky descending to Earth is in all likelihood a UFO. We move now to Saskatchewan in Canada, and the year is 1933. Witnesses saw a large oval-shaped object that was domed at the top and slightly rounded on the bottom. It was supported by legs, and from a center doorway or hatch, about a dozen figures could be seen going up and down a ladder-like stairway. The occupants appeared to be slightly shorter than the average man, and were all dressed in what appeared to be silver-colored suits or uniforms. All appeared to be wearing helmets or ski caps, and all were busy running around repairing the craft. Time moved on, and soon mankind was hell-bent on killing each other again in yet another world war. This time our own flying is a little more advanced, and yet the aliens were still way ahead of us. Pilots across the world started to report strange glowing orbs flying in and around their own formations. They became known as Foo Fighters, and no satisfactory explanation other than they were UFOs has ever come forward. But the 1940s is pretty much the entrance into our modern world, and so we shall now embark on another journey into the past. There is in fact huge evidence that aliens not only came to Earth, but invaded and manipulated mankind. This is the untold story of a very real and ancient alien invasion. In Africa today, there are the remains of the oldest form of worship anywhere on the planet. It is a cave in the shape of a huge serpent. All around there are pieces of stone, fashioned into thousands of small scales. This is the place of worship for the serpent. We know from thousands of eyewitness accounts, past and present, that aliens have a striking resemblance to reptiles and snakes. This, then, is where man first came into contact with the aliens. The discovery of this one location surprised the world. Nobody expected original worship to be that of a serpent, and yet it is within every single religion. It is in all the myths of the world, and they all tell the same story. In the beginning, the serpent was the wise one, the only animal in the Bible to speak freely with his own mind and voice, the tempter, and yet also the holder of ultimate wisdom and the elixir of life. Mankind, in comparison to this remarkable animal, appeared foolish. From that day forward, the serpent would control man. This is all written down, recorded by man over centuries. No questions asked about how a serpent-like figure coming down to earth could talk. The very genetic makeup of mankind altered from this moment. We cannot say exactly when, we cannot pinpoint the so-called Garden of Eden in time. But we can piece together the remarkable story of the moment the serpent aliens came from the skies. We can uncover the story of what happened next and how it has affected our own time. The truth is, aliens do in fact still walk among us right now. The historical truth is that the serpent is embedded in the origins of all major religions, and it is in fact the root of them all. This has been proven again and again, both from scriptures and archaeology. According to Ferguson, the 19th century historian and writer, we first meet with serpent worship either in the wilderness of Sinai, the groves of Epidaurus, or in the Sarmatian huts. The serpent is always the Agatha Daimon. which in ancient Egypt presided over the affairs of men as the guardian spirit of their houses. That the idea of health was intimately associated with the serpent is shown by the crown formed of the asp, or sacred thermithus, having been given particularly to Isis, a goddess of life and healing. And according to Hargrave Jennings in Ophiolatreia, there were no doubt intended to symbolize eternal life. This is revealing, for one thing, that is definitely associated with these original serpents is eternal life. To mankind, these serpents appeared to live forever. They outlived man. They also were great healers and was said to be able to cure man of his ills. In The Serpent and Siva Worship, C. Stanley Wake remarks about the serpent as God, sacred, powerful, and almighty, who kills and makes alive, who heals the sick and prevents diseases and pestilence, who can cause thunder and lightning to strike their victims or prevent their fatality, can cause rain in abundance when wanted, or can withhold it so as to ruin the crops of rice. He is also celebrated for his knowledge of the past and future, and for his capacity of discovering whatever is healed or concealed. These serpent gods have basically all the elements of the Agathodaimon, which is the sacred serpent in one god. He is like many other serpent deities in charge of the weather. He has knowledge and wisdom, and above all, he can heal, resurrect, and disperse disease. These are all elements that thousands of people across the world have said are within the power of aliens. Ancient serpent deities that basically mirror modern witness tales of sightings and even abductions. They came thousands of years ago, we are told, and they genetically created a species, man. You see, according to the Bible, Adam and Eve were the progenitors of the human race, and they spent time in the Garden of Eden with a talking serpent. The whole human race is derived from these two people, a story of two people created by the God of ancient times to populate the earth, a hybrid species, part God and part of the earth itself. Remarkably, the origin is found to be related to serpent worship from their Sumerian origin. The word Hevia is the root of Eve and means female serpent. It is connected to the same Arabic root which means both life and serpent. The Persians even called the constellation Serpens the little Ava or Eve. In Old Akkadian, Ad signifies father, and Adam was closely associated in legend with Seth, Saturn, and Thoth, who were all associated strongly as serpents. Abel, the son of Adam and Eve, means serpent shining, and Cain was thought to be of serpent descent simply because he was. The other and important point to note is that Adam and Eve were initially immortal, and Eve gained her wisdom via the serpent on the tree of knowledge and life. According to rabbinical tradition, Cain was not the son of Adam at all, but rather the son of Asmodeus, the serpent spirit. In conclusion, Adam and Eve and even their sons are serpents. The very so-called origin of humanity is in fact based upon these Sumerian shining ones that came from the sky in the form of serpents. The origin of humanity is from the line of serpents, or, as we know them today, aliens. There is no denying that in all the records we have of these shining ones as having descended from the heavens to be incredibly wise and powerful, to have set up a special guardian race called the Watchers, who then went on to mate with humanity and create a hybrid race. That hybrid race is known across the world in folklore as the Giants. History tells us quite simply that this was a crime, and the original aliens, the Shining Ones, did battle with the giants and brought about a great cataclysm. This is not science fiction. This is the recorded history, ignored by historians because it does not conform to their own belief systems. According to Babylonian legend, in the beginning there was neither land, gods, nor men. There were only aliens known as Tiamat and Apsu. Tiamat was the female of the spirit of salt water and primal chaos, and Apsu the male, the spirit of fresh water and void. Tiamat is depicted with scales and a serpentine body and legs, with horns on her head. The union of these two gods produced all other gods, including the greatest among them, Quinju. This later became the Quinotar, the progenitor of the French Merovingians. Their bloodline stretched back to the end of the age of Taurus. This, for the first time, gives us actual dates for the ancient alien invasion, and amazingly, it fits perfectly with all that we have discovered in their origin in the dawn of Mesopotamian civilization. 5000 to 4000 BC. Over thousands of years and across hundreds of cultures, the history of this ancient invasion by the great shining ones from the heavens altered and became legend and myth. Much of it turned into great religions of the planet, but hidden in these stories is the real, literal truth of an invasion of planet Earth by beings so strange that we called them serpents. Ancient man left cave paintings and tales of their coming across the world. The great guardians of the Shining Ones, known as the Watchers, mated with human females, and a hybrid bloodline was born. It became the bloodline of the rulers of our globe and was protected and kept secret. Every now and then the secret would emerge into popular mythology with people such as the Merovingians and tales of superhuman powers. Up until around 5000 BC, we know that mankind had no great civilizations. It had been this way for millennia. Then suddenly, at the very time we know as the Age of Taurus, at the very period that our remaining texts tell us the Shining Ones came and taught humanity, it all changed. Suddenly, civilization erupted. The Sumerians migrated to Mesopotamia towards something that seemed to attract them. This is the period of tales of a great cataclysm, what we know as the Flood. Judgment from above. The gods were angry and dealt humanity a cruel blow. These tales are worldwide. Civilization erupted and great learning spread far and wide. Serpent rock art appears all over the world. a great and powerful image of a horned god now begins to find itself everywhere. This is the Lord of the animals, the image of the one who had all knowledge. In the Bible, he would become the one we know as Moses, the wielder of the serpent's staff, the teacher of his people, the one who would raise up the brazen serpent in the wilderness to protect his special people from other serpents. This is the period that Enoch tells us was the time of war between those who had come down from the skies, the angels, the Nephilim, the shining ones. These were the great shining serpents who had magical flaming swords and wheel-like or disc-like ships that flew around in the sky. As the scribe of the shining ones, Enoch himself was shielded from death and taken away by the aliens to live out his days in heaven. Christians today know him as the man who walked with God, and the reason is simple. God came down to earth and walked on our soil, spoke with Enoch, and then returned. Whatever this means, it does reveal that ancient man witnessed something remarkable. Simply replace the word God with alien, and we are getting somewhere. In truth, this was the period of the ancient invasion of planet Earth by the shining race of serpents who came from the sky. Our ancestors worshipped them for their amazing power, and yet, in our modern scientific age, we can now see things more clearly. These were not angels or messengers of light. These were not great Greek deities sat on high and issuing commands. They were not the many-faced Hindu or Egyptian gods. These were beings from another planet who came here with superior technology. They helped mankind start civilization. They bred with us and they fought with each other. Most, we are told, left, but the hybrid race remained among us as special people. And now, with every passing day, NASA tells us that they have discovered yet another Earth-like planet that could sustain life. They find ancient rivers and lakes on Mars and even fatty acids within the Martian soil. They alter their equations on the existence of alien life on a weekly basis. Even they are growing more and more aware that soon they will discover something special. The question is, will we awaken the ancient invaders, and will they return, if they're not already here? But there is even more evidence of ancient aliens. In the mythology of the Hindu religions, there are a great many tales of aliens or avatars traveling in flying machines. These machines are called Vimana, and they are revealed in the work known as the Ramayana from about the 5th century B.C. Here's what one canto states. Is not the wondrous chariot mine, named Pushpak, wrought by hands divine? This chariot, kept with utmost care, will waft thee through the fields of air, and thou shalt light unwearied down in fair Ayodhya's royal town. And another canto states, swift through the air as Rama chose, the wondrous car from earth arose, and decked with swans and silver wings, bore through the clouds its freight of kings. What are these cars spoken of over 2,000 years ago that can ascend and descend from the sky if not alien craft? No human technology existed like this at the time, and unless our ancestors could see into the future, then what were they describing? These craft were said to be brilliant as the sun and made noises like thunder. This is amazing imagination for the period, especially when we consider that these tales match those of thousands and thousands of UFO witnesses today. From the earliest texts we have proof that mankind was concerned with the precise invasion and control of our own species by extraterrestrial beings. Over the millennia, these beings have stepped in and out of what we call reality and manipulated our lives. If we actually took a look at the very first text from all religions, we actually discover that our ancestors were talking about beings that came from another place. They reveal that beings descended often with craft. They then took control of humanity, formed the first civilizations, taught us how to grow crops, science, languages, and more. They placed superhuman watchers over us to keep us in our place. We, in turn, worshiped them and turned them into our gods. The stories tell us how they had superhuman powers. They could fly and change shape. They had incredible weapons of light, chariots, and flew through the sky, and they lived for very long periods of time. Why is it that we modern scientific practical humans believe in a so-called living and jealous God? Because that is what they wanted us to believe. Archaeology and history reveals that the times before these beings arrived, humans lived in a peaceful existence. We lived off the land. We ate berries and root crops. We followed the herds and were in tune with nature and its rhythms. Then suddenly we found broken bones, burnings, and other signs of warfare. What changed? The beings arrived and a divided mankind fought. An ancient civil war across the world between those who followed the invaders and those who wanted freedom. One unique element we see in historical texts and art is the ability of those special beings to shapeshift. Many texts even tell us of how abhorrent they were to look upon. Snake-like reptilian elements are at the forefront of descriptions. Today, many call them reptiloids, saurians, or even draconians. It is nothing new. In fact, it has been known for a very long time. The earliest forms of worship are all serpentine. In every country across the globe, in every single religion, in every myth, no matter how separated by time, the worship of the serpent is of paramount importance. The fact that mankind actually did battle against them is clear from the myths seen all over the world, such as the casting out of serpents from Ireland and Malta, the stories of George slaying the dragon, and the archangel Michael fighting the beast are just two. They were given titles over time by mankind: Elohim, Shining Ones, Watchers, titles of those who held strict control over civilization. Much of this myth of the Watchers is found to be within the tales of wars and merging of peoples across the Middle East between Canaanites, Egyptians, Sumerians, and even Asian civilizations. But the underlying current is a belief in the Shining Ones as leaders, with Watchers doing their bidding, evolving eventually into our myths of God with his angelic beings. The terms Anunnaki, Anakim, and even Nephilim mean those who came down to earth from heaven. These ancient beings looked down on the people below and watched. Something that would sound very familiar to thousands of people around the world today who have experienced alien visitations. The truth of the story of the Shining Ones and their Watchers has been the subject of a purging by many authorities who were understandably concerned that the myths of these angels and their worship would distract people from the worship of the one God. To this end, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees were stricken from the accepted list and are now known as Apocrypha. What we do know, though, is that these Watchers continued in what has been described as the underground stream and were called egregores. They bred with humanity and melted away. Very soon, massive secret societies emerged that fostered the original teachings of the Shining Ones. Derived from the Greek word egregoros, it means watcher or guardian. The office of a watcher is to protect from outside pressures a region or ethnic group assigned to its care. The battles between men are all part of the bigger control of mankind and are preordained by the Watchers. Egregore is Greek and means to rouse from sleep, be excited by passion, to be awake, or to watch. Incredibly, etymologically linked to the Enlightenment experience or awakening, or a place between awake and sleep. It is this very place between awake and sleep that the vast majority of alien abductions occur. It is this part of our mind, this midpoint, that we suddenly become aware of reality, of the beings all around us, controlling us. This is the moment many awake and become strange to the rest of society because they have seen. Eliphas Levi, a 19th century magician and mystic whose eyes were opened, speaks of these egregores on numerous occasions and even links them to the giants or watchers spoken of in the Book of Enoch, saying that they take shape and have appeared in the guise of giants. These are the egregores of the Book of Enoch, termed the celestial watchers or egregores by the ancients. Levi also calls these egregores the Anakim, Shining Ones, men of renown, the giants of the Bible, and that they are expressed in the myths of various cultures, just as we have been finding. It therefore appears that Levi knew of these egregores or watchers from the recently translated and widely available Book of Enoch. Levi was well known to have Rosicrucian tendencies, and this movement too was aware of the meaning of the word. In fact, they believed that the egregores were still in existence and were working in the background. Amazingly, the infamous book, the Necronomicon, tells us about a fabulous city of Erim. Erim of the Pillars is part of Arabian magical lore and was built by the jinn or angels and were also watchtowers, the towers of the Watchers. The Thesaurus Temporum, translated into Latin in the mid-17th century, gives us a chronology of events surrounding the egregores. They descended from the skies, and by 1487 BC they had taken Enoch to paradise due to the descent of the fallen watchers. A text from the 17th century quite clearly states that the watchers descended, remained on earth, and even took Enoch away again. It seems that the extremely ancient concept and story of the ancient aliens was still very much alive and being propagated secretly by the mystics of the last few hundred years. These were part and parcel of their hidden secrets. Today we have watchers. Thousands of people have witnessed them. Hundreds come into direct contact with them. There are comic books, games, and even movies all about them. Their origin in modern times can be found in the 1940s as UFO sightings were on the increase. People who reported having witnessed a UFO started to be contacted and threatened by sinister men in plain cars and black suits. Over the years, very few facts have emerged about them. They are thought to work for secret government departments, and yet they are seen across the world. They have strange superhuman powers. They come and go as they please, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They were referred to by some as demonic beings. They have strange features and dark skin. They shapeshift. In fact, there are hundreds of reports of reptilian shapeshifters all over the world. Eyewitnesses have described humans turning into reptilians and back again before their eyes. These reptilians simply take the form of humans to merge into society, we are told. Their history is the mythology of each and every society and civilization. The stories across the world of serpent gods, dragons, and beings of light are the stories of the mass invasion on a worldwide scale. The creation of civilizations everywhere comes hand in hand with the stories of the arrival of beings from another world. Before they came, we were simple, peaceful people. Afterwards, well, we know the stories of war across time. It is said that in ancient times we called aliens angels because we did not know what they were. Today it is said we call them aliens because we know better. There is in fact no difference between them. Aliens and angels are the same thing. Angels came, taught us, manipulated us with their words from the gods, and even abducted us. Today, aliens do the same. In fact, just like in ancient times, abductees claim that they were taken by reptilian-like beings. One of the earliest modern reports is from Nebraska in 1967 of a police officer who claimed he was taken on board a UFO by reptilian humanoids wearing a winged serpent motif. It is claimed by some that aliens would not be humanoid, but they would if they had, as the ancient texts state, created a hybrid species. The fact is, humans have been abducted for thousands of years, ever since the arrival of the reptilians. There are copious texts reporting these events, and some of the most famous are the actual characters from our religions: Moses, Abraham, Mohammed, Jesus. All of these and more have all had close encounters with what we today would call aliens. Even Mary meets the angels of light at the tomb of Jesus. There are also thousands of artifacts left behind by our ancestors. These depict the actual aliens themselves and their shape-shifting nature. From rock paintings that are tens of thousands of years old to carvings and statues of later civilizations. There are even numerous crafts seen around the world and left for us as works of art. Strange faces, strange craft, humanoids with elongated serpent-like eyes, spacesuits, spaceships, depictions of planets with rings that could not have been known, weapons. These are huge gaps in our history that simply cannot be explained in any other way. How suddenly an agrarian society discovers the knowledge to become a world-leading civilization with the ability to build massive superstructures that point to specific locations in the sky. This is just one example. There are more, and they are all over the world. If mankind was creating some kind of lie about his origins, then he was doing so on a grand scale, and our modern historians are ignoring their ancestors' explanations. That aliens came, took control, and took over our minds. The fact is, ancient artifacts across the world revealed non-human intelligent creatures at the hands of machines and weapons, and superior to the ordinary human being below them. Historians know this, and yet they themselves create fanciful explanations that simply do not explain the whole story. The whole picture is not taken into account at all. There is absolutely no explanation why cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years come up with the same cultural origins of extraterrestrial human beings that all look and act the same. Beings from another reality, super weapons, superpowers, the ability to change shape, the serpentine reptilian appearance, the creation of civilization, the teaching of humanity, the erection of huge structures, the sudden knowledge of mankind, the forming of religions with deities and divine beings, and the forming of a line of special hybrid kings and queens. All of this is factual and worldwide. It is in every single culture and country, and it all supposedly happens separately. The truth is in the recorded history of each place. The truth is that these early historians were recording history, not creating myths. Ever wondered why the God of the Bible sometimes appears too human? Why is he a jealous God? Why is he lonely? Why he wipes out entire armies with his super weapons? The answer is simple. The gods of ancient times were all those things. They too have jealousy, hatred, love, compassion, because they too evolved in the universe like us. But they are the fittest of the species, and we are not. We are the prisoners, and they are the gods. Now you know the answer to that question of why God does the things he does if he truly is a loving God. The Shining Ones came down. They set up watchers to control humans and foster civilization. But some of these watchers didn't like the way they were doing and actually fell in love with humans and mated with them. The Shining Ones declared war on those watchers and tried to wipe out the bad hybrid species by causing a global flood. Ever since then, the angels have done battle with the demons, the bad with the good. And we have often witnessed these things, painted them, drawn them, and written down records. These are records left behind by people such as Enoch, and remarkably, the same things spoken of thousands of years ago are still being witnessed today. Benevolent beings saving humans from disaster. Battles in the sky, a war between those that would control us and those that would set us free. The reason we don't all see these things and find crashed craft or dead bodies everywhere is simple. Your mobile phone signal is yours. The person next to you can also talk on their phone at the same time. The conversations do not cross or get mixed up. One does not hear the other. They coexist. The same is true here. What mystics are seeing are beings of different light in a different dimension. What people who are in the hypnagogic state, or between waking and sleeping, are seeing is another world, existing in the same place in space and time as our own. One is attempting to control the other and very often steps across that boundary. Beings from that other place actually crossed over to our dimension thousands of years ago and took control. They have been manipulating us ever since through their hybrid children. The jealousy of the god was that he wanted control and would never relinquish it. But there are angels of light that fight back, and the whole myth has become so mixed up that it is now confusing. The Freemasons are accused of worshiping the devil because they actually hold Lucifer in high esteem. Lucifer means light, not darkness. Things, as Salvador Dali once said, are not always what they seem. Salvador Dali was a unique artist. He saw reality in a different way to the rest of us and mocked the system. He bent reality, and to us it appeared strange, but to him it was reality. My reality is different to yours. Even further away is the reality of my dog to my own, and even further still is the reality of an ant or a bee or a fish, and yet we all coexist. It seems, therefore, from the thousands and thousands of eyewitnesses across thousands of years, that there is another reality the rest of us cannot see. It is a reality where beings of light descended to earth in great craft and interact with humanity. You never know. One day, you might meet a shining watcher and have your reality altered.